So let's begin first by defining those three. Well, in fact, we'll first name those three basic classifications of gold standard, and then we'll try to define them to better understand why we're not communicating in a straight line, since not all of us are evidently reading from the same book, let alone the same page. Yet we're all using the same words. If you thought doctors, lawyers, and judges had a corner on this kind of a market, think again. The three basic types are: one, a gold coin standard; second, a gold bullion standard; third, a gold exchange standard. Now, when you turn to Black's Law Dictionary, and I've got a 5th edition here, and you look up the word or phrase gold standard, here's what Black's Law Dictionary says. And this I'm reading in its entirety. Gold standard: a monetary system in which every form of currency is convertible on demand into its legal equivalent in gold or gold coin. The United States adopted the gold standard in 1900 and terminated it in 1934. See, the standard and it does not refer to several. And yet economists say that there are at least three different kinds of gold standards. Welcome back to this segment of Datum Line. Today's message is entitled Economic Myths, the Science of Deceit. And this is part 1, beginning a new series. On the other side of the break, I had quoted from Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, with regards to their definition, that being West Publishing, their definition for gold standard, and you notice that it was only one gold standard that they contemplated, that the United States had adopted the gold standard, and that it was terminated in 1934. They made no mention of there being three different kinds of gold standards, or, as the economists point out, that there are variations within those. And I'm going to be going to some economic textbooks, or at least one textbook, and perhaps even a second one might be called a textbook. It reads more like a history lesson in banking. But I want to point out that the gold standard that was defined by Blacks is most likely the one that the general public operates by, in that they believe it was a monetary system in which every form of currency is convertible into gold or gold coin. And most people believe that a Federal Reserve note, United States note, gold and silver certificate, that those were currency. I take issue with that. It seems like I stand alone on a lot of things, but I don't mind. Currency, as defined by Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, coined money and such banknotes. That's a misnomer. There's an error right there. A banknote is a promise to pay money. Okay? And a promise to pay money is not money. But nevertheless, that's what they say the definition is. Coin money and such banknotes or other paper money as are authorized by law and do in fact circulate from hand to hand as the medium of exchange. There are several errors in that statement. There are no less than three. One is that a banknote is not money, is not on the par with coined money. Paper money is not money, and paper has never been used as money. Paper is too heavy. Paper money was in the form of notes or IOUs, and an IOU for money is not money, any more than an IOU for a hat or an IOU for a pound of butter could be a hat or a pound of butter. And in fact, I like that word, in fact, circulate from hand to hand as the medium of exchange. Well, what is it that circulates from hand to hand? And again, Federal Reserve notes circulate from hand to hand, but they do not import or export anything in direct proportion to the numerical figure in the corners of those bills. If they did, then the paper would have to increase. If you were using paper as money, you'd have to have 100 times more paper in a $100 bill. But who would want to use paper as money anyway? The Federal Reserve will tell you that we don't use paper as money. They'll tell you that we use credit. And you recall the Federal Reserve System works only with credit. Page 12, Keeping Our Money Healthy, Federal Reserve Bank of New York from 1977. And on and on. They tell you that there's no cash in checking accounts, for example. Well, if there's no cash there, then you can't cash checks. Why can't you cash a check? Because the cash is money, Carolyn versus Young. There is nothing being used as money in the United States. No matter how many times people use the word money, that doesn't make it so. Okay? Now, the Coinage Act of April 2nd, 1792, but Section 11 said that all the gold and silver coins which shall be issued from said mint, which was the Philadelphia Mint at that time, shall be as money. Okay? Thomas Jefferson knew what was going to be used as money. Banknotes and paper money were promises to pay money, and thus not the money, but proxy tokens that substituted for the money that was allegedly sitting in a bank or treasury vault. Therefore, if you wanted to make the statement that there was this stuff called paper out there, and there is paper, but it's not money, that circulates from hand to hand as if it were the money, as if it were the medium of exchange. The money or the medium of exchange still sitting in a bank vault. Okay. Now, I had mentioned a gold coin standard, a gold bullion standard, and a gold exchange standard a couple of minutes ago, and I used the word a or a rather than the word the, since again there can be and have been many different gold coin standards, many different gold bullion standards, and many different gold exchange standards. So much for the stability you may have associated with the word standard. Now, you might want to ask your accuser as to which of those three basic standards he or she presumes you are advocating America return to, particularly since neither the United States Constitution nor the Bible authorize or justify any of them, not even 100% redeemable certificates or notes, which bring their own set of problems to the table. We've dealt with these in earlier messages and will doubtless restate them in another broadcast. Meanwhile, on the other side of a break, I see we've got a break coming up now, we'll be asking some economists for a quick rundown on these three different gold standards. The first economist we're going to visit will be Dodd and Hasek. In their textbook called Economics Principles and Applications, we'll be going to the third edition, 1957. Who are these people? James Harvey Dodd, Ph.D., Chairman of the Department of Economics and Business Administration, Mary Washington College, University of Virginia. Carl W. Hasek, Ph.D., formerly head Department of Economics and Commerce, Pennsylvania State University, and their consulting editor, T.J. Hailstones, Ph.D., Professor of Economics, Director of Business Administration Programs, Xavier University in Cincinnati. Welcome back to this half of Datum. And we're going to be dealing with economic myths, which are so prevalent, which sustain the present system, which doesn't use anything as money. And if you're going to use a system that uses nothing as money, in other words, they just use credit, intangible credit, or what the Federal Reserve calls faith or confidence, which are also intangible, then you've got to produce a lot of mythology in order to hold this confidence game together, because that's exactly what it is. And we've already dealt with the subject of the confidence game in a previous broadcast. But we're turning now to Dodd and Hasek, Economics Principles and Application. Page 391, bottom of the page, if you happen to have a copy of this one, third edition. Gold standards, plural. At one time or another, they say, and in different nations, one of three types of gold standards has been used. Page 392 at the top of the page. Subtitle, The Gold Coin Standard. Quote, the nature and operation of the gold coin standard may be illustrated by reference to the standard in use in the United States from 1873 to 1933. So they go back a little further than Black's Law Dictionary, which only went back to 1900. During most of this time, gold performed the following services in the monetary system. 1. The The monetary unit, the dollar, was defined as 25.8 grains of gold, 9/10 fine, okay, 23.22 grains of fine gold. All right. Owing to the pliability and softness of pure gold, gold coins contained an alloy in order to give them hardness. The Gold Standard Act of 1900 defined the dollar as 25.8 grains of gold, 9/10 fine. All right. Number 2, gold coins were legal tender. Oh, no, they were lawful tender. That was Section 16 of the Coinage Act, April 2nd, 1792. Legal is only the form of law. Lawful is the substance of law. And tender is only an offer. Gold coins, when you passed a gold coin to someone, you weren't just offering. You were paying. Okay, gold coins were legal tender. That is, an offer to pay a debt. No, gold coins paid the debt, in gold, and constituted a legally satisfactory offer to discharge a financial obligation. Well, a gold certificate was the offer to pay the gold. When you passed the gold, that was the payment. 3, there was free and unlimited coinage of gold bullion. Okay. 4, there were no restrictions on the use of gold. Oh, sound like a free country, huh? Gold could be used either as money or as a commodity in the arts and in industry. It could likewise move freely from the arts and industry to money. Nor were there any restrictions upon imports and exports or the use of gold in paying international debts. 5, in practice, all money, things start falling apart here, all money in the monetary system was convertible directly or indirectly into gold. Well, gold and silver were to be as money. So what was it that you converted into money that wasn't gold or wasn't silver? It was IOUs. And IOUs, again, were not the money. They only substituted for it. That's all they tell us about the gold coin standard. They don't attempt to tell us that only 40% of the Federal Reserve notes, when the Fed opened for business in 1914, could actually claim the gold right up front. You couldn't open up a checking account with only a 40% reserve and redeem, if you could, your checks with only 40% of a deposit. Okay? You couldn't do that. But banks could do that. But the economists just don't seem to get around to telling us that there was not 100% redeemability, even though the public thought there was, and the public should have thought there was, because every note said it was redeemable. The facts were different, however, from what the words said. The second standard they talk about on this same page, 392, is the gold bullion standard. We'll read that. It's just one paragraph long. That's all it takes, apparently, to define a gold bullion standard. Quote, if a government wishes to discourage the circulation of gold, so who's sovereign? The people or government? Well, the government's sovereign. If a government wishes to discourage the circulation of gold, it may refuse to coin the metal into money. Well, the Coinage Act didn't provide for them being able to refuse. The original Mint Act said that they were going to do it. All you had to do was to bring the gold to them, and they would strike it into coin form for you. Okay? It may refuse to coin the metal into money, but continue to use gold in the other ways indicated above. Oh, so you're just going to back the IOUs. In such a case, it would be appropriate to refer to the standard as the gold bullion standard. When England entered World War I, she abandoned the gold standard. Now, that was a gold coin standard she was on at that time. And when in 1925 she resumed the gold standard, it was provided by law that the metal was not to be coined and that other kinds of money in the system could be redeemed in gold bars of not less than 400 ounces. You had to have enough claim checks in your pocket to be able to get 400 ounces of gold before you could have the gold. Now you figure what the market price, we'll get around to the subject of the price of gold because that's another misnomer. You figure what, at $1,600 to $1,700 an ounce, what it would cost you to get 400 ounces of gold. So is this a system that favors the guy on the street or is this a system that favors the super rich?